Game 3 appears to be somewhat interesting. There are all the components you would want for a draw your deck type of engine here. You have lots of draw, and you have plus actions in two places, nobles and university. However, whenever you're building such a deck, a draw your deck type of deck, with these flat villages, I call them, they don't draw a card, reliability is much more of an issue than it would be with just an ordinary village, for example. So we have also some trashing in the junk dealer trader, not so much. Don't really want to pick up a trader for trashing. And interesting, one of the things that I noted right away was charm. The use of charm on the board as a gainer seems to be very, very crucial. In addition, charm is your only source of plus buy. So seems like you should put at least a charm into your deck. Charm could gain Hunting Grounds Nobles, it can gain Junk Dealer Rabble, Rabble Treasury, all good options for your charm. So I'm going to open with the potion and a silver here. The silver is to get to the big price point, $6, $5, and the potion is to get to the university, obviously. My opponent opens the same way, and it seems like we have the same idea in our mind to go for this draw your deck style engine. I also briefly looked at Tunnel at the opening. There was no real way to trigger Tunnel except for Navigator, but that you play in real games if you try to build some kind of Navigator Tunnel thing, meaning you have little to no control over how that goes. So my opponent gets to 5 right away on turn 3. I don't get to 5 on turn 3 or 4, and he picks up a charm, which I don't agree with. I would have gone for a junk dealer, and I do pick up my first junk dealer here off the university. Instead, I pick up just another silver on my turn 4. I would have loved to have 5 and pick up a junk dealer, but I had to wait for mine, and still for more $4 hands for me here, so I'm not having the greatest of starts in the world here. However, I believe that my opponent's charm should set him back somewhat, and now he picks up a trader. That is also something I don't agree with. I can't really see why he would pick up a trade. And again, on this $4 hand, I don't go for anything because I don't want anything. I don't want another silver. I don't really want another navigator. I think I have all the money in my deck that I need to go picking up the expensive things. They're just not coming nicely. Anyways, so my opponent manages to get up to 6 for a hunting ground straight away. So they did pick up a junk dealer and then the hunting grounds, so they have a bit of draw in their deck, and now they're doubling back for the junk dealer. So we have 2 each, but because he picked up his charm first, I think I am going to be a little bit ahead on playing the junk dealers, provided they don't miss the shuffle. So I use my university to get a rabble, so that's my first draw card in the deck. I have a couple universities, so hopefully if I'm lucky, the university and the rabble will come together and I go for a charm. At this point, the junk dealers, well, the junk dealer has pushed out an estate from my deck, so what I'm thinking is that even if I have to play the rabble dead, perhaps I can draw into my charm and get up to 6 and charm to get nobles and hunting grounds. So let's talk a little bit about nobles on this board. This is one of the better boards for nobles. It's a very, very good card on this board because it shores up, it addresses the issue of stability that you have when you're building your engine here. Nobles could function in both ways on this board. You would gladly accept either option depending on what cards you draw. You could take the cards if you have too many actions. You could take the actions if you have too many draw cards in your hand. So nobles on this board, you could make excellent use of the options it gives you. This is one of the, like I said before, better boards, highlighting why nobles is worth $6. It is not always going to be a necropolis or not always going to be a smithy. It will be sometimes one or the other, and that is what you pay the extra money for. Not necessarily so much for the points. I mean, yeah, okay, you pay a little bit for the points, but this kind of flexibility is tremendous in making this kind of deck stable here. So I do manage to get up to 6 on charm, and that is easily going to be a nobles and a hunting grounds for me. No questions about that at all. put a couple of excellent cards into my deck. So the hunting grounds, whenever you have hunting grounds on the board, you should perhaps look for a way to trash them because they can be worth some extra points near the end of the game. So here, trader could trash them, but you get a handful of silvers with it, and also junk dealer can trash it, which is a lot cleaner. You don't add so many cards into your deck than trashing with the trader. Why you would want to trash it is to get the duchy, of course, for a quick points gain near the end of the game. So oftentimes when there is hunting grounds and some form of trashing on the board, you want to include a bit more hunting grounds than usual, just so that you have the option of trashing some of them to get points near the end. So here I considered getting rid of the potion, but felt like I might still want it just because of the source of plus actions it offers. That is really the only reason why I considered keeping the potion around. But however, here I decide to kill it because I wanted the little bit extra money to try to sneak up to 6. Right now I want to be hitting $6 at least every turn, picking up either hunting grounds or nobles. So fortunately I do hit 6. In fact, I hit 7, so I could have kept the potion if I wanted to and still gotten to 6, I believe, but I wanted to give myself the best chance, right? Don't trust your deck in Dominion. You never know what can happen. As long as it is possible, cater for that possibility within reason, of course. So now we are starting to get a little bit more thin, but still the reliability is a bit of an issue because of the flat nature of these villages. So my opponent has now a couple treasuries. He probably has them because he feels like he has too many rabbles in his deck, too many draw cards, that is, so the treasuries don't really run the risk of colliding with anything, but I still would pick up more rabbles than not in his position. But I'm not keeping that much track of his deck to know whether the action to terminal balances how he wants it or whatever. So he now has a few more treasuries. It does allow him to get a little bit more money on his turns, but he has to get everything running, right? Up and running all together. The treasury also doesn't really interact too nicely with the nobles, but that's okay because charm can get around that limitation. You buy a hunting grounds and then gain the nobles instead of buying the nobles, gaining the hunting grounds. So yeah, both of us are still struggling to get things going. His rabbles in this middle game here have been completely disheartening. Look at this one here, Nobles, University, and Rabble. I would have drawn into those cards. Instead, I am going to probably draw into Drunk because yeah, the top 3 cards were really good, so I expect the bottom 3 cards to be not so good. Well, still managing to have some sort of turn here. You see the Nobles being used here for plus actions, and you'll see if you just look later on, I'll use it for cards at some point later. So really, I can't emphasize how much Nobles, shine or shone. Is that the past tense? Yeah, shone through him in this end game. So thinking a little bit about triggering the shuffle, deciding to do so because there's quite a few good cards because of my opponent's rabble. So I do trigger the shuffle, and it turns out I was decently correct. I do have somewhat of a start of a turn here. And now my opponent does finally decide to go after the rabble pile. So I believe he has quite a bit of those guys, the rabbles that is. And he is able to actually string together everything, which again I was not pleased about, but what can you do? That's how these things go sometimes, right? Sometimes somebody just gets a break from the deck and they manage to string everything together. That's just what happens in these kinds of decks sometimes. Look at that reveal from his rabble, his last one, University Hunting Grounds. Not looking too hot for me right now, not looking too hot. So his charm comes out. I believe he takes it for plus buy, I'm not entirely certain. But he is going to pick up on nobles here and another charm. So he has, if he can draw everything, the option of 3 buys. And this is just very frustrating here. Not able to string together too many things. Just gonna play the second Rabble to try to attack my opponent. I believe he still has a couple estates or one estate in his deck. Either way, the attack is good, right? Hopefully I can flip some of his good stuff. Managing to see my charm here means I go for hunting grounds and nobles. Little bit scary because of the sheer amount of universities we have. I think he has one more university to me again in this game here. So potentially he could, get all the treasuries from 4 university plays and then nobles, the 2 nobles from his charm using it as plus buy. So I think that's what he's going for here, the pile out. But then he stops and he picks up a junk dealer instead. So it makes me think he doesn't quite have the pile out yet, which I'm happy about, of course. Again, Noble's Rabble Hunting Grounds flipped for me by his Rabble. Not great at all. And he doesn't have the pile out, actually. So he instead goes for a province, right, to put him 2 points ahead, I believe. So now I have to start to think about the pile out, right? There's just 2 treasuries which I can gain with my universities very, very easily, and I can also get up to the necessary money. I have enough silver and whatnot to get to that mark for 12 and 2 buys rather. So the question is whether or not I can do it, whether or not I want to risk it at this point. And I say no because I don't know what's coming up after this hunting grounds play. So instead I pick up a junk dealer. I believe picking up a junk dealer does not make it any easier for him to end the game than it already is. And I still do have some junk in my deck. I can't play the junk dealer to get rid of those things. So for the first time in the game, I believe I use this university to gain nothing. Don't even want another junk deal. I feel then perhaps it's a little bit easy for him to end the game because then he could take 2 treasuries, 3 junk dealers and finish the game. Maybe that's a possible window, right, that he has. So here I finally get a good look at my deck. Finally I'm able to draw through everything, and I'm going to pick up another navigator here just because I could use it for the money right now, and it's not terrible, I think, to have a couple in the deck. Maybe it is, but I didn't think so at this point in the game. I did want it for the extra money though. For sure I wanted it for the extra money. Lets me get up to 14 and 2 buys here. Definitely a province. I can't let my opponent have the points advantage this late into the game. And now I pick up another charm. Perhaps that should have been a duchy. Perhaps it should have been a duchy, but I think the charm is still okay in this position. I can perhaps have 5 and a charm and get duchy and maybe another charm or something, or another junk deal. I can't help in ending the game. So nervously waiting here for my opponent's turn. He doesn't kick off. He does not kick off. This is what I'm talking about. The decks are not very reliable at all. Picks up 2 tunnels instead. So what I do here, I could have played the university and then drawn with the nobles, but I have no idea what I'm drawing into. And if I play the university, I want to try to leave those plays to end the game. So instead I go for the safe play, which is to look at my top 5 cards with the navigator. I see a bunch of draw, no plus action. I cannot draw into any combination, any 3 of those top 5 cards to have a good turn this turn. So I discard it and I pin my hopes on what this nobles can draw. And you know what? Is a bunch of garbage. Had I just played the university and nobles blind, I probably would have been able to win the game on this turn, but I didn't want to take the chance. I had no idea what I was drawing into. So I didn't take the chance, and now, well, I'm stuck in this position here. Ruin what could have been, and at least I'm able to pick up 2 tunnels here. So I do turn the points advantage into my favor here, but very, very scary, because if my opponent's stall last turn, probably is going to have a good turn this turn. 2 treasuries, 2 nobles in the pile, 3 junk dealers as well, because I put it down to 3. Perhaps that was a mistake as well, but he stalls again. Those coppers, not getting rid of all of them, hurting my opponent at this point. Very, very fragile decks we have here. So he just picks up a duchy to level up the scores here. And I have to play both these junk dealers to have a chance of kicking off, and I do manage to find a university. Obviously killing the navigator here because I can replace that very, very easily. So here again, I do think about going for the end of the game. I choose not to. I don't know what this rabble is drawing me into, but here, seeing this hand and seeing my opponent get pinned by the rabble with a tunnel and an estate, I decide to go for it. Because I had the hunting grounds drawing 4 cards plus another rabble in my hand, I decide to go for the win, and it comes through this time. So, a very, very tense endgame. I don't know if I played it too safe near the end there, but I think playing it safe is not a wrong thing to do in general. So as it is, I'm able to find both charms even and pick up the last 2 nobles for the win. So that is a finish, a very tense finish to game 3.